you've written a piece that Donald Trump basically seems to have come to the realization that he's president and that he can do things. And to the extent that this guy had an agenda, I don't know if you can actually say that he had a sort of cohesive agenda, but there were certain things that he seemed to be feel quite strongly about. One was the imposition of tariffs from perhaps, I don't know if that there was any sort of foundational thinking that involved that. It's really more of just like a whim or a disposition. And the other was that he wanted to have torture, but, that he was basically saying we should torture the families of people. Mm-hmm. But just talk about the broader implications of this, because he seems, and I've noticed this over the past couple of weeks, he seems completely unfettered by anything that's going on around him. I don't know, maybe they're telling him stuff about the Russia investigation is not going to be so difficult. We did hear some reporting suggesting that Mueller was not going to pursue, at least now, obstruction charges, which suggests to a lot of people that there are bigger fish that he has to fry, which should scare some people. But I mean, give me your perspective on this, and then let's talk about what happened in Pennsylvania this week, because it may not, Donald Trump may be living in a certain delusion where that doesn't affect his thinking, but I have a feeling it's different for a lot of Republicans.
Oh, I absolutely think it's different for a lot of Republicans. Although I heard on television a number of reporters report after the race in Pennsylvania that they went up to Capitol Hill to see what the Republicans up there were saying about it, and a lot of them were just kind of living in denial and still not ready to accept the fact that Donald Trump's approval rating is a tremendous drag, and that they were going to have to deal with that in some way if they wanted to be reelected. So I don't know how much that's going to affect their strategy. I would assume that their self-preservation would kick in, but apparently when it comes to Donald Trump, they just have completely lost their bearings. So I don't know about that. But yes, Trump has over the past, I would say the past 2 or 3 weeks, I think, and I'm not the only one who's noticed it. I'm sure you have. I'm sure anybody closely observing him. There's a sort of a frenetic quality about him. I mean, if you just look at the amount of stuff that he's doing, and just sort of, even if you go back to the sort of gun meeting that he had, where he said, yes, I believe we should just, we don't need due process. We'll take the guns and then have due process. Right. And just sort of, it's a little bit crazy even for him. And my personal theory is that, as I said earlier, that I think that he has just discovered that he has this power, that people have to act, and that he will not have any real opposition. I think he's accepted the fact or come to understand the fact that he can do all these things, and everyone has to scurry around him to accommodate him in some way. That nobody's going to walk in the room and say, no, you can't do that. I mean, I think maybe he didn't, look, let's face it, Trump didn't go into the presidency having even the slightest clue of how it works.
Right.
He didn't understand how government works. I mean, this was all new to him. So I think that to the extent he's capable of learning, he has learned that he has a tremendous amount of power and that he can actually make it happen. So, as we are looking, at the 2018 election, in November, we had heard earlier, maybe in January, I think, that his strategy, what he wanted to do was just, he wants to get out on the campaign trail. He wants to get out there and just let, everybody's saying, let Trump be Trump. And he doesn't want to, he thinks, I don't think he's that, he likes the tax cuts, but I don't think that's what he really cares about. He wants to have his tariffs as an issue. But mostly he's going to run the culture war game again. That's what he says. They're looking for cultural moments like the NFL, right? So,
we should say the cultural moments, as uttered by the Trump administration, is a euphemism for black people who are in the news.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's
maybe
basically...
some Mexicans.
Right,
if they can get some Mexicans, they'll do that too. But yeah, I mean, that's what he's looking for. He's looking for ways to race bait. Let's just make that real clear, because he knows that that's really what gets his base out. That's what pleases them, and that is what he thinks is the key to electoral success in the fall. And as I said, reporters are saying that Republicans are still, and it's still early days, but in light of what we've seen in the off-year election, in the special election in Pennsylvania in particular, because that was the heart of Trump country, right? I mean, he won that district by 20 points just 16 months ago. It is filled with all the white working class people that, I mean, it's not all white working class, but there's a large contingent there. And he went there and held a big and raucous 20-minute long rally in which he, ran all his greatest hits, and he, talked about himself, and, basically turned it into, if you love me, you got to love this guy. Although he didn't say much about the guy. He seemed to like him very much. But that's what Trump thinks. He thinks, he can extend his great charisma onto whomever he decides to anoint. Well, that has not proven to be true so far. So, we're gonna see how well that does. But I don't think there's any stopping him. Now, it'll be very fun to watch this. What happens when Trump wants to go to a district where they don't want him. Right. I mean, you're going to tell Trump, no, don't come. I mean, I have a feeling that this is going to be a very, very unpleasant situation for a lot of people in the Republican Party who, in their hearts, of course, recognize that he could be the kiss of death. Any district that has a lot of suburban college-educated types, they are completely turning on him. They're not, in every one of these elections, he is losing those people, or whoever the Republican is losing those people. And, a fair number of the white working class that he was so dependent on in Pennsylvania, the Republican won them, but by a lot less than Trump won them. So even some of those people, even if they still love Trump, it doesn't appear to be transferable for some of them. So this will be very interesting to watch how this happens and how Trump deals with the idea that he is the drag, and I don't think he gets that. I don't think he understands that.
I want to push back just a little bit on this. We have to take a break. When we come back, let's dig into the dynamics that were taking place in Pennsylvania's 18, because I think Donald Trump is a drag, but I think the Republicans have a more universal problem that Pennsylvania 18 has exposed. We got to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. I'm talking to the great Digby, Heather Parton. I'm Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio.